Hello everyone, you're welcome back. Today we are going to be making an underbust corset as requested by one of us. And here are the materials we are going to be using. I'll be using Regening boning, and also I'll be using bias to create channel for the Regening boning, a machine thread. Then I'm using this contrasting lining so that the shocks can be visible enough for us to see, and I'll be using this denim material to make the underbust corset. And also you'll be needing your fusible interfacing, popularly known as tape. Alright, so the first step I'm going to do is to fuse my lining with the stay. This method is better than when you finish cutting and you now started fusing with stay. It's better you just fuse your fabric first with stay before you start drafting your pattern. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is to fold the fabric into two. And to determine the amount of the fold over, you need half of your bust circumference plus 2 inches seam allowance. But if you want it to have zip allowance, you can do half of your bust circumference plus 3 inches. Alright, so my bust circumference is 40, half of 40 is 20, 20 plus 2, that will give me 22 inches. So starting from the folded edge, I'm going to measure 22 inches inward. Then I'm just going to roll the line. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is to rule my guideline so that I can have a starting point for all my vertical measurements. Alright, so the next thing now is to divide this block into two so that half will be for the front and then the remaining half will be for the back. So just divide it into two. So here I have 11 inches. So I just measured the 11 inches at another point so that I can have a straight line. Alright, so this part is for the front while this other part is for the back. So the next thing you want to do is to place your tape measure this way. Your armhole length will be on your guideline. So basically we are taking off our armhole length. So from there you measure down your underbust and also your waist length. Then after that you are going to square across, just rule the line. That is your waist length. Rule it across to the back this way. Alright, so this is what we need. So the next thing you want to do is to extend the underbust length. Just extend it, let it not pass to the back, just in front alone. Alright, so this is the underbust length. After that, I'm going to input my nipple to nipple distance divided by 2 plus ½ inch seam allowance. My nipple to nipple is 8 inches divided by 2 will give me 4 plus ½ inch will be 4.5. So I measure the 4.5 on all the lines, then I just roll the lines straight. Alright, so the next thing you want to do is to measure 1 inch downward starting from your guideline. Just measure 1 inch and then you are going to roll the line. Just like this. So after that, you're going to measure 1 inch inward starting from the folded edge. And then on your underbust line, you come up by ½ inch, just the way I'm showing you here. Next thing you are going to do is to measure 3 inches starting from your side seam. Just measure 3 inches inward the way I'm showing you here. Then after that, you connect these 3 points together. Just use your French curve to connect the points together. And when that is done, the next thing you want to do is to input your dart. So under your nipple to nipple distance line, you measure ½ inch dart on both sides of the line. Measure ½ inch dart on both sides of the line and you connect it to the underbust this way. Can you see? All right, so the next thing you want to do now is to input your waist circumference. So measure quarter of your waist circumference. Quarter of my waist circumference is 8 inches, so I'll measure the 8 inches and I'll make a mark. Then I'll measure the distance of my dart, which is 1. I'll put the distance there. Then with my 1 inch seam allowance, 1 inch seam allowance, then I'll connect it to the side seam this way. Do you know the reason why we did not insert the bust circumference is because we used the bust circumference to bring this block out, so that's why you don't have to input the bust circumference. All right, so moving on to the back, you can see is the bust circumference plus 1 inch seam allowance that is there. So on the waistline, you input the waist circumference measurement divided by 4, then 1 inch dart, and then 1 inch seam allowance. And then you blend it to the side seam like this. Don't forget the back circumference measurement is starting from the center back. All right. Then from your guideline, you measure 3 inches downward this way, and then you blend it to the side seam. So this is more like your neck depth. Next thing is to insert your dart. So you measure your nipple to nipple distance on the waistline, and then you roll it straight up the way I'm showing you, and then you're going to take 1/2 inch dart on both sides of the line, and then you're going to blend it upward this way. All right, so this is basically the block. This is what the person wants, but for me, I'm going to be making a little alteration. So from the waistline, I'll measure 3 inches downward, and then at the center back, I'm going to measure 2 inches downward. This is optional. This is not part of the style the person sent. I'm just doing this because I feel this would be a lot nicer. All right, so from the side seam, I blend it this way. Then I also blend it this way to the back. So the next thing we are going to do now is just to cut it out. But before then, we need to, because I don't want it to have zip allowance. If you want it to have zip allowance, it's just for you to input your zip allowance at the center back. But then I want it to have a loop at the back. So I'm going to measure 2 inches inward at the upper part, and then at the bottom part I'm going to just measure 1 inch inward like this, and I'm going to blend it this way. I want it to have a back loop. I don't want it to have zip. All right, so we are going to be cutting this part off. We are going to be cutting the dart off, but before then you need to extend your dart leg to that extension like so. So next thing now is to cut it out. And I also round this part. I didn't want it to have that square kind of shape, so I'm going to be cutting it out now. All right, so I also fold the main material into 2, then I place the lining on top of it so that I can cut both of them together at once. And I also fuse the main material, the denim, I also fuse it with my stay. All right, so I'm done cutting it out, and this is how it's looking. So when you are done cutting, try and match them all together. Any part that is longer, just blend it. Mine is equal, but in case yours is not equal, if it's longer, just trim it. See the way it is. So if any part is longer than the other, just blend it. So everything is perfectly equal here. So next thing now is to put notching. So first, you can label it if you want, if you don't want to put notch, but I'm going to be notching it so that it will be easier for me. So I'll notch this part, then I'll notch the corresponding part, then I'll also notch all the down parts so that I can know which which is which, so that I can know the down part from the upper part. All right, notching it is very important so that you don't mess it up. So you can notch the front as well. Alright, so I'm done placing my notches, and if I open it up, this is how it's looking. This is the center piece, this is the two sides. So this is what I was talking about. If you match them together here, and if they are not equal, just blend it. Just blend it. Highest it will be more than like about 1/4 inch, so just blend it. And this is the back. Please try to put your notches, it's very important so that you don't mess them up. Alright, so I'm going to take to the sewing machine now, and I'm going to show you how you're going to couple it up. Alright, so I'm starting with the back. You can see I'll match my notching, then I'll join it together this way. So this is the two sides for the back. So this is the front. You will also join it together, both the main fabric and also the lining. And you're going to be joining all the panels together with 1/2 inch seam allowance. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is to use my bias to create loop that I'm going to be using for the back of the dress, and I'm also going to be using the bias also for lacing the loop. So I'm going to be cutting the bias into 2.5 inches. That's what I'm going to be using to create the loop. And I cut 10 because that's the amount I want for the loop. So the next thing I'm going to do, this is the back pattern, and we're going to be using this bias strip to create loop for it. So I'm going to measure starting from the beginning of the neckline. I'll measure 1 inch downward like this. Then from there I'll continue to mark 2 inches at interval. So altogether I have 5 loops on each side. So the next thing you want to do is to transfer the shock to the second side of the top. Right, so you're going to be placing the bias on top of your shocked line. So just place the bias this way and then put it on top of the line, and then you're going to stitch it. Just stitch it directly on it this way. Alright, I'm done facing the loop, and this is how it's looking. So the next thing now is to create your style lines, the line where you want your bias to be, so that you can put your regging boning inside the channel. So from the center back, I measured 2 inches in one and I ruled it. Don't forget, whatever is happening to the left hand side should also happen to the right hand side. So I'm also going to be rolling the line on the front part. So I would like to have one on my dart legs. So I'll just roll it.
So that's my dart line, and then that is the second dart line. So you can place the bias anyhow you want it. So I'm done putting the bias on the front bodice, and this is how it's looking from the inside. And I've also put the Regilene boning, and then this is the back. I'm done with it as well. I've created the channel for it, and this is how it's looking. And I've also put the boning. So the next thing you want to do now is to join them together at the side seam. So join them together at the side seam. Just place the back on top of the front, right side facing each other, and you're going to join the sides with 1/2 inch seam allowance. So you will also be joining the lining together. So match the right side of the back with the right side of the front, and then you close the side. But then for the lining, we are going to be leaving a little space at the side seam so that we'll be able to use it later on to bring the corset out to the right side. So first I'll stitch about 2 inches, then I'll back stitch, and then I'm going to leave a little space about 4 to 5 inches, and then I'll continue sewing till I sew the whole place up. Then I'll just sew the other side, and then this is how it's looking now. You can see the opening there. This is the opening. We're going to be using the opening to bring it to the right side by the time we're done joining both the lining and the main fabric together. So before you join, don't forget to trim off any excess bias hanging. So you're going to be placing the lining together with the main fabric, and then you're going to stitch it all around with 1/2 inch seam allowance. You sew everywhere close with 1/2 inch seam allowance. And when that is done, you're going to be notching it all around, notch everywhere, but don't cut your seam. So that little space that you left on the lining, you're going to dip your hand and then bring the fabric to the right side. So after bringing it to the right side, this is how it's looking, and basically our underbust corset is ready. And this is the outcome of our underbust corsets. I like the way it is, just that I didn't see somebody that will help me and lace it, but I just tried to lace it by myself and I love it. If you already know how to draft corset, this 2 parts here is all you need, together with the back part of your corset. If you don't know how to draft corsets, I will leave the link in the description box. I've done a detailed video tutorial on it. Alright, so that's the end of the class for today. Don't forget to like, share and comment. Please kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel if you have not subscribed, and I'll see you in my next tutorial. Bye.